So I need to talk to you about Jack from the YouTube channel Jacksfilms, but before I get into that, a little while ago I was doing some research into Irish folklore, and I came across what is called a cluricaun. Now this is not to be confused with a leprechaun, who is the relative to the cluricaun, but a cluricaun is kind of like a leprechaun, except for that you can find it hiding generally in pubs and bars, and it basically sneaks around and steals your alcohol and gets drunk all the time. It's kind of like the crappy version of a leprechaun. Well, why I'm bringing this up is because after discovering this creature, I started looking at old artworks and images of cluricauns, and I came across this image here of a cluricaun stealing a jug of alcohol. And I thought, maybe this is just me, but that looks like Jack from Jacksfilms an awful lot. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe my eyes are playing a trick on me, but that's what he looks like. Well, I didn't think much of it until I started looking into Jack a little bit further and found out that he's actually primarily Irish. And I thought, well, that's kind of weird. Is there a chance that Jack from Jacksfilms could in fact be the mythical cluricaun? So I start digging a little bit deeper into him as a person, and I find out that his real name is actually John Patrick Douglas. He just goes by Jack as a nickname. And I thought, okay, well, let's look at the name Douglas and see what that means. So I look it up, and it turns out that it means dark stream. Then I thought, well, hang on a minute, that's not how he spells Douglas. Everyone else spells it like that, but he adds an extra S on the end of his name. So it looks like it spells glass. So Jack's last name literally means dark stream going into a glass. And I thought, well, what could that mean? And then I realized it's referring to a dark Guinness being poured into a glass. And here's an image of him here, dressed in his Irish attire, pouring a dark stream into a glass. And then here's a picture of him angrily destroying it. So obviously that's a little bit weird, but there has to be more that prove that he is a cluricaun. Well, what does a cluricaun look like? Well, as you can see here, they are depicted as having enlarged heads. And it just so happened that an ongoing joke about Jack is that he has a giant head. I personally think he has a normal looking head, but there's even a video where he scrolls through a ton of big head jokes. And it just so happens that this video was about his trip to Ireland, of all things. So what a coincidence there. Now, as I mentioned, his name is actually John Patrick Douglas, and Jack is only a nickname. But why is that? Why does he go by Jack? Well, here he is drinking a bottle of Jack Daniels, probably that he stole from some pub, and maybe that's where the name Jack comes from. But what about the whole stealing alcohol thing? Well, I came across this article about two men stealing $21,000 in alcohol, and it just so happens to be from Maryland, the exact area that he's from. What a coincidence. Now, this says it's two men that did it, so my guess is that the other man would be Jacksepticeye, who is another big Irish YouTuber, and likely also a cluricaun. Now, at this point, you're probably thinking, this is stupid. Why should I believe a guy who is clearly selling his body for grocery money? And trust me, I am ashamed of that, so thanks for bringing it up. But you're probably also thinking, maybe if we had something a little more scientific to back up this information, maybe something a little bit more mathematical, maybe then I'd believe you. Well, unfortunately, I have no math to back this up, except for the fact that Jack was born June 30th, 1988. So I look up 1988 and I find this copy of the Guinness Book of World Records. And the Guinness Book of World Records just happens to have also been created by the Guinness Beer Company. And this book sells for $11.28 on Amazon for a paperback copy. Well, if you take 1988, the year that Jack was born, and subtract $11.28, the price of the book, it gives you $8.60. So what does $8.60 mean? Well, I look up $8.60 and I find this article talking about the best Maryland colleges that you can get into with an $8.60 SAT score. Again, Maryland being the area where Jack is from. Well, it turns out that $8.60 isn't a very good SAT score, and it places you in the bottom 17th percentile in the country. So then I thought, okay, 17th, what does that mean? So I looked that up, and it brings me to an article talking about 17th century Ireland. And it talks about how the beginning of the 17th century in Ireland was marked by the Battle of Kinsale in 1601. Well, I look up the Battle of Kinsale in 1601, and it just happens to bring me to an article that not only talks about the Battle of Kinsale, but the main article is actually about Jack Douglas being YouTuber of the Year. So what are the chances of that? Well, if you take the year 2018 and you subtract the number 4, the number of confirmed limbs on Jack's body, it gives you 2014. And what happened in 2014? This article was posted talking about a real-life encounter with a cluricaun stealing alcohol from somebody's pub. So is this all just a coincidence? I don't know. I highly doubt it. Too many things are lining up here. All I can say is that if Jack is a cluricaun, I'm okay with it. I still think he's a really funny YouTuber. I would still watch him. I just wanted to expose the truth. On a side note, here's an image of my Patreon supporters locked in my basement. So if you want to join them in there, my link to my Patreon is in the description below. Thanks a lot for your support. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.